Kash Patel, Dan Bongino coming out with this blockbuster story that nobody else is covering. I'm like, this is kind of important, okay? This actually is bigger than Watergate. And where are you all? Why aren't you covering this? Why aren't you talking about the fact that you had, we can't use wiretaps. You see the New York Times gets really mad at that. I have to be careful. PBS gets really mad about that. They're like, how dare all those Republicans talk about wiretapping. It's not wiretapping. And then they try and say that the entire story is false because we say wiretapping. So let's be very, very judicious with our words and just say they intercepted the communications of at least 8 sitting U.S. senators. They were intercepting the communications of 92 groups, including my friend Charlie Kirk's Turning Point, which, by the way, is running a Super Bowl special opposite Bad Bunny that's going to knock it out of the park. You see, you can't actually do that. I mean, not without a whole lot of warrants or subpoenas or FISA warrants. I mean, I don't think they had anything. If you listen again to Lindsey, this is his point. What the heck were they up to, right? What were they doing? Lindsey Graham is livid. You've got Grassley that's livid. You got Kennedy that's livid. You got Marsha Blackburn that's livid. You've got Ron Johnson that's livid. And now they're demanding answers. So Jack Smith investigators need to pay big for January 6th phone records probe, warns Senator Graham. You bet they need to pay big. Here he is on Fox talking. He said, quote, when Jack Smith was looking at my phone records and that of other senators, I think he broke the law. And I think that he needs to be held accountable. And I think those who brought this about need to pay and pay big. Again, you can call it retribution, you can call it payback, or you can call it just justice so that you make sure that this kind of, you know what, doesn't happen again. I want to watch him again. Here is Lindsey Graham, again, on NBC, speaking with the NBC host, and what about Trump? What about Trump? What about Trump? And he's like, no, listen. What you guys did, and not her in particular, but the Democrats, and I don't know if she identifies as a Democrat, but I'm guessing she does, given what I've seen of her in the past. Here's Lindsey saying, you know what? There's going to be HELL to pay, as there should be.
Do you think that crosses a line between the Justice Department being independent from the executive branch?
I think our Justice Department in the hands of Biden crossed every line there is to cross. I think within 3 days of announcing he was going to run for president in 2024, he did that in 2022.
But what about Trump?
He had 91 indictments.
What about
Now, I think the grand jury is going to take care of this, but you didn't care any about this. You didn't care that Letitia James made up charges that no one's ever faced.
But Senator Biden never publicly called for Trump to be indicted.
He had 90. Biden regretted that they didn't do it before the election. Jack Smith surveilled my phone records and 8 other senators. Jack Smith introduced his brief against Trump October the 24th before the 2024 election, violating every protocol just to politicize the election. So this may bother you that people are being held accountable. It doesn't bother me one damn bit.
I'm curious, does it bother you? I mean, I think that you don't really have a choice here. Again, you can't play Mr. Nice Guy. Because when you play Mr. Nice Guy, what do? They turn it on its head. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I remember hearing, there's multiple things I can't believe, but I remember hearing right before the November 2020 election, Hillary Clinton went on a podcast with her former PR person or one of her flacks, and she said, listen, if it's close, you hang on. My advice to Biden is you hang on for dear life. In other words, she was already willing and able to contest anything. She was encouraging Biden to contest everything if it was even close. And they're doing this, in the name of quote unquote democracy. And then, when he tries to contest something like Georgia, whoa, now we have the right to go and look at their phone records? Come on, what kind of warrant did you guys get? And who gave you a warrant for something like that? Jack Smith? I know Kash and Dan have fired all of the agents, which is very good. They're firing all of the agents that were involved in this. But what I want to know is, how did they get the right to do this? What exactly went down that they were able to use certain warrants? Here's the memo. Here are the names. I have to lean in kind of close because it's very small print. But Mike Kelly, Lindsey Graham, Bill Haggerty, Josh Hawley, Dan Sullivan, Tommy Tuberville, Ron Johnson, Cynthia Loomis. Ooh, she's mad. She's looking at what she has in terms of rights as an individual. Like, forget the fact that she's a senator. She's wondering about, well, how did they infringe on her personal civil liberties? And Senator Marsha Blackburn. I mean, what the heck, guys? All in the name of quote unquote democracy. You guys were doing this unbelievable stuff. Bondi and Hawley talking about it. No one reported on this. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but I'm not like, I'm a dog with a bone, right? On this one, I am just blown away. And I think it sets a very, very bad precedent because, we found out, thanks to whistleblowers about COINTEL, that was done in the Herbert Hoover days, right up and through to like late 1960s. And they were spying on all kinds of Americans, including Martin Luther King. Like, you can't do that. Like, you really and truly can't do that, right? And yet somehow they did this all in the name of justice. You got to be kidding me. And no one's reporting on it other than to say we're wrong because we called it wiretapping.
Manner of things and the current president. I've also heard them said, and I just wrote it down because I wanted to be sure I heard it correctly. I've heard them say that Joe Biden never targeted his political enemies. Joe Biden never directed his attorney general to target his political opponents. That's interesting because I could have sworn that yesterday we learned that the FBI tapped my phone. Let's look at it. We've got a list. Tap my phone, tapped Lindsey Graham's phone, tapped Marsha Blackburn's phone, tapped 5 other phones of United States senators. Gee, it sure looks like targeting political opponents to me, and yet I haven't heard a word from that side of the dais about any concern whatsoever. We've got nothing but concerns today, but no concern at all for a Justice Department that is tapping the phones of sitting United States senators because who knows why. They don't like them. They're members of the opposition party. They're Republicans. They're conservatives. You've seen this document, Attorney General Bondi. Well, what was going on here? Who ordered this? Who ordered the tapping of the phones of United States senators?
Senator Hawley, I cannot discuss the details of that right now for very good reason.
You're going to do a thorough investigation into this, I trust. Is that correct?
We will be looking at all aspects of this, and I have talked to Director Patel at length about this.
And you're going to figure out who was involved in this, who signed off.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I want to get to one of the comments because one of you guys you're suggesting that perhaps Bondi didn't want to comment because it's that much worse than we think. I don't know. I do think it's worse than Watergate. David, I agree with you. I think that Bondi can't comment too much just yet because she's learning about it sort of in real time as we all are. And the big question is, what exactly did they have in terms of authorization to be able to do this? Because phone companies shouldn't be giving away these records. They just shouldn't. I mean, you've got the Wiretap Act, you've got the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, you've got state privacy laws and eavesdropping acts. I mean, you've got to have proven something, and the bar should be high, very, very high, because otherwise you can weaponize the government against ordinary Americans and apparently the other political party. I mean, that's what's wild. That's why this is bigger than Watergate, because they wanted to take down anyone associated with Trump. And so they determined, okay, Trump is a liability. Trump is a problem. Trump is going to cause democracy to fold. He's going to try and take over the government. And so we are going to use anything and everything we can against the other side, which is why they then were able to, at least in their eyes, justify going forward. And I can't say tapping. Oh, Josh Hawley, they're really mad at you because you said wiretapping, interfering with the private communications of sitting U.S. senators. I mean, that's pretty wild. Again, it takes a lot in order to do that. There are certain measures that you would have to follow. You need a court order. You need a subpoena. You need an NSL, U.S. Patriot Act, national security letter. I'm guessing that's what they got, right? Is that what they got? A national security letter because Donald Trump and all of his accomplices, half the country, were somehow a threat to democracy, or a FISA order. So maybe, that's how they went after him the first time, right? They were able to go after Carter Page with the FISA warrant because they had that fictional intel courtesy of, Hillary Clinton's law firm, Perkins Coie, that went out and hired Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS was an investigative political research team that went out and hired Christopher Steele, who then went out and hired a bunch of other people, including people that we believed at the time to be actual Russian spies. Right? Like, you can't make it up. It's like this wild game of like around and around and around in a circle we go. And here we are where we get back to, well, one side doesn't like the other, so they're going to therefore weaponize the government and use it against the other side in order to get them kicked off Twitter. Get them kicked off every social media platform imaginable. Get anybody who reports upon it or on it off of these social media platforms. It's wild. I mean, they were actually going after people's bank accounts, right? Certain people couldn't get a bank account, for goodness sakes. Yours truly got more calls from her bank that she's had for some 20 years than I have ever had in my entire life. And miraculously, I'll tell you what, guys, after November of 24, I stopped getting the calls. Suddenly, I'm no longer popular. I don't know what happened. Or actually, I think I do, which is really alarming. Okay, that's just like pure anecdotal. I don't know why I kept getting so many calls. I don't know why I was so popular. They were asking me about everything. And then all of a sudden, it all stopped. And where were the phone companies? Why were they doing this? Why were the banks acquiescing? Why were the phone companies acquiescing? What were they threatening them with? I mean, it's something that Senator John Kennedy had a lot of questions about.
But the phone company and the general counsel for the phone company, or companies, if there were more than one involved, could say, you know, this is serious as an aneurysm. This is serious as 4 heart attacks and a stroke. This is a sitting United States senator. So general counsel would likely advise the CEO, well, you need to file a motion to quash.
Senator, typically phone companies follow a subpoena from a United States attorney.
I know they do, but they don't have to.
They could challenge it, Senator.
Yeah. Or maybe they should have gone to Amazon and buy some testicles online. Instead of just saying, sure, I'll just show you the phone records of a sitting United States senator on the basis of an administrative subpoena.
Look, I mean, it's typically what they do. Pam Bondi's not wrong. I would just say, was this a really flimsy subpoena? And how is it that our government was able to get these subpoenas? What judge was willing to roll over? Why don't we have a higher standard, right? You just say, oh, we think they're a threat to democracy. I mean, what if we did that? What if we said, we think every Democrat is a threat to democracy? We think AOC, we think Bernie Sanders, we think Hakeem Jeffries because he can't figure out the shutdown. We think Chuck Schumer. Oh, they're all threats to democracy. So we're going to go now and we're going to intercept the phone communications of all those people. No, you can't do that. Okay, you can't actually do that, guys, because that would be wrong. Like, it's like they have no actual moral high ground, and they just kept going back to, but it's Trump, but it's Trump, but it's Trump.